Hello, and welcome to North of 1867. I'm Kevin, and I'm your host. This channel is all about all things Canadian, past, present, and future. I hope you can just sit down, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, this three-part video series is about Port Nelson, the Port of Churchill, and the Moosonee shipping routes to James Bay. Okay, these are the proposed projects that may come into fruition. Of course, the Port of Churchill is already underway as far as improvements and that go, but it's actually a functioning port. Okay, so we're going to start off with Port Nelson in this first part of this series. Uh, so, over 100 years ago, a new shipping port construction was undertaken in Port Nelson on the west side of James Bay. The construction of the port itself required a huge industrial dredging machine that had to be built remotely and then shipped to the mouth of the Port Nelson River on Hudson's Bay, which was a huge undertaking on its own. In 1913, Canada's Department of Railways and Canals commissioned the Polson Ironworks in Toronto, Ontario, to build a large suction dredger to help construct what was to be the first port on North America's Arctic Ocean coast, to be named the Port Nelson. She was completed in March 1914. The dredger, that is, the suction dredger, and towed to Hudson's Bay, arriving in September 1914, where she promptly ran aground. So, I guess, they managed to get that freed up and sailing again. And in so then it worked for a number of years, and they had to, dredge a way out, and they had to build an island out there, about, I think it was about 2 kilometers offshore, and to run the bridge to the railway bridge out to this little island where they were going to use to moor the big ships, because it was too too shallow, getting close into shore. It's not deep water there, so they had to dredge it all out to this island, and then dredge all around and everything. And the dredging material is what they used to make the island, along with shoring material around the edge of it and all that, the walls for it and everything. But they made an artificial island out there. Okay, so here is a picture of the bridge that goes to the artificial island that they built at Port Nelson, and you can see this is like a railroad bridge, and you can see that these cement abutments here, a lot of them here, would have taken a lot of work just to get those in, but anyway, I think that today, and this is just from what I've studied doing other videos and that these cement abutments today would be made, they wouldn't be flat here with all the ice that's here, 7 months a year. They would probably have these triangular, like right here. Instead of flat, they would be coming out V-shaped like that here and over here. That way any ice, that's big masses of ice, that it would split when it hits here.
when this pointy shaped, if it was pointy shaped, like triangular coming out, jutting out, that would help split that ice so that the ice wasn't just continuously pushing against these cement structures all along the cement abutments. So that probably would be one thing that they would do different today if they were building this. Okay.
There was a huge storm, and that was in 1924, and that tossed that thing, that dredger, right up onto that island, right onto its break wall kind of thing, going a perimeter going around the island, and it kind of did a lot of damage to it. Pretty much almost broke it in half. It looks like in the pictures anyway, which I'll show you. Anyway, and so after a lot of development, eventually flooding and a huge storm on Hudson's Bay caused extensive damage, like I said, to the port, underdevelopment, and dislodged the dredger, and that's where it wound up, right on the edge of that, and pretty much useless after that. Also, that whole project was delayed in the middle of the project due to World War One starting up. Okay, then they got onto it again, and so there was a lot of complications in that.
Okay, so here's an old picture of the Port Nelson dredge that they manufactured in Toronto for working on the Port Nelson project, over a century ago. And it wound up on this big seawall here on this artificial island. There was a huge storm, and it just pushed it right up. It just broke free from its moorings and pushed it right up on this wall. I think it was likely big time damage under here in its hull. And, like I said earlier in the video, that it was just probably way too expensive to fix and to bring in the materials and the laborers, the tradesmen and that to fix it. And there were other problems, and shortly after this happened, the whole project was canceled, and then they started everything up, building a new port in further north, a little bit further north in Churchill. So anyway, this is quite an old picture. I think it's a steam steam generator in it that worked the dredging system and the propulsion of this unit as well. So it was quite the technology for its time. Quite the useful piece of equipment for a lot of places. Before this, they kind of had to hand dig things, and they did a lot of hand digging in rivers and that to dredge them out. It was a lot more work and more time consuming, of course.
Now, so like I was saying, that dredging machine was destroyed pretty much and beyond repair, and it was going to take too much work to do anything about it, because look, we're so remote out there to get parts and everything and all that out there. Plus it was just there was the storms were too bad and everything for that kind of, they didn't, I guess they didn't probably have it heavy duty enough. They didn't anticipate such drastic storms coming there. But so anyway, they canceled that project right after that, pretty much, and that was it.
Okay, so here's a picture of the dredge here back in 2007, I believe this picture was taken. Over time it just weakened more, and probably the rough seas and that, the odd storm that came along and that just hit it more and sort of bounced it up and down a little bit, and then eventually just broke it right in half. I think that's called capsize, but that would be more like in the ocean but anyway, this was, a little different than just a ship sailing through the ocean and it capsizes on a wave. This is because it's on a retaining wall here, on a sea wall, and that just makes it even worse. That just, that's like applying a giant sledgehammer to it, with a big anvil below it, so yeah, that's eventually, that caused a lot of damage right from the beginning when it hit that. Although, it was still looking like it was more in one piece, but you could tell that likely there was some serious damage in the hull in the first picture that I put up and showed you.
Now there's a similar project, like I was saying, that's being considered today to again attempt to build a new port in Port Nelson with the use of modern technology, modern engineering, and greatly improved dredging machines. They're a lot better today. Instead of steam, they're hydraulic now, and there's a lot more capacity in that to do the job. One big advantage that this port would have is that the railway line that would have to be built to access it would be built on much more solid ground than the railway that's going to the Port of Churchill. One big disadvantage, though, is the huge amount of silt that goes down the Port Nelson River. There's a lot of silt in that river. So that would, fill in the dredging again a lot quicker than in other places, like in Churchill. There's a lot less silt there. Okay, so they would pretty much always constantly having to be dredging out that that river leading right out to the port and everything, right? So that's one disadvantage there. But like I said, the railroad and that would, the ground along, like the railroad had to go along to get to what would have been the Port Nelson, would have been a lot more solid, less muskeg and things like that there. But anyway, today, Port Nelson is pretty much a ghost town. Okay, but there's a lot of indigenous people out there, and of course, if we could make use of that area again, Port Nelson, it could be a great thing. Anyway, the future as part of Nistanan, that's Cree translation to English is all of us. That's what that means. Okay, Nistanan, and there's you can go to a Nistanan website, www.nistanan.ca, and check out what they have to say about that. They're really trying to push for a new project there. The Nistanan corridor is coming from out west right to Hudson's Bay. It's a large, wide corridor that's been approved, I think, by our government and by the indigenous nations all along through there. They might still have some negotiating to do, but overall, I think it's been all approved by their people, and the Canadian government as well. They sure wouldn't turn that down. But anyway, so there's a couple different there's different projects all through there that they could now start working on with the proper approvals and funding. Anyway, so that's it with that for now. Let's see. Yeah, I might try to get the map. Well, of the old trade route, the going to the west, and the new trade route that they're proposing, going, east to James Bay, or Hudson Bay itself. So like Hudson Bay itself has got the Port of Churchill on it, and what was the project for the Port Nelson project, and that is now going to be the Neastanan. And anyway, so that's it for that, and stay tuned for part 2, which is going to be all about Port of Churchill. Okay, so if you like the video, please like and subscribe at the end of the video. Make any comments you want. Okay, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.